Hello, I'm Sten Martin, and this is the 13th episode of the Depression Crisp series, where we try to make clothes in a quite basic manner. Everything we do here can be done more precisely, but that's not the point. The point is to see how you can get a flow in your creation and actually make something of your own instead of just buying it. So this time I will continue what we started out in the sixth episode, and that was the men's jacket. And here is the base, or as we call it, the canvas that I started up in that episode. And now it's pad stitched and it's padded and finished for draping on. Of course, it was a little bit short. I told you that last time. You're supposed to go a little further down, but there you go. You cannot always make it longer or make a very short jacket. I think at least this jacket will be around here at the end of the dress stand or just below your behind your buttocks. You can see this jacket, for example, it ends actually up on my um, back. And this maybe is a little bit short one, so do it as long as you would like. But of course, this one should continue all the way down to the length that you decide. So a little bit unconventionally, I like to make the base or the canvas first to actually shape the body I would like to have, or what I would like my customer to have. And as you can see, the difference between the shoulder width on the dress stand and on the canvas is a little bit different, and of course the height is different too. And what this canvas do is that it's rounding or um, make the lines of the body more fluid, as you could feel on yourself here at the shoulder. Almost everybody has a hole or a concave area before the bust or chest area arrives, or if it's not very prominent, it would be a bigger hole here. And what the canvas do is that it straighten this area out, but it doesn't stiffen it this way here because it collapses. It's very easy to bend together or fold together, so it eases the movement forward. You can easily turn this way or this way, but it's very stiff this way, so it keeps the label out and rounded. And what's important is that the most stiff area ends here where the label starts. So this softer area continues out, but the stiffened area that's in under this white stuff ends over here. So this part would be very stiff around down here, and this one would be softer. So that's why we do this, as we call canvas. I think they call it canvas because in the early days maybe they used canvas. I don't know. But traditionally it should be some horse hair interwoven with wool. But nowadays it's very hard to get. So at least this top softer area is viscose, as we call it, wooden fibers covered with a Teflon-like thing. So it's actually not 100% natural, but it's divided. No, it's made out of a natural material, but refined, you could say. So this is the base, and usually otherwise you just drape on the dress stand and then you add on the shape you would like. But when you have this underneath, it's easier to drape. So that's why I do it this way, a little bit backwards, but it gives it gives a clearer view of what we actually do. So that's the canvas. That was the 6th episode. So now we will try to drape on this one. And of course we start with sorry, we start with square pieces of fabric, and this is just cotton. It's not cotton drill, but it's plain cotton which you use. And of course you will like to follow the thread in the material, so it would be correct if you would like to use stripes or squares or anything, plates, of course it's called, afterwards. What you could do is to, we actually never talked about this before, but if it's not squared, this area here, you could block it, and you do that if this is not straight angle over here. You can pull it sideways or diagonally anyway, not in the thread direction, and if you pull it this way, you will alter this angle. So you pull it here, and then you continue pull it, and then continue to pull it, and then you press it, and then you get a more square angle. This is the correct thing to do. I usually don't do that to save time, and I know that my pattern is not all correct, so I just square it out afterwards with the pen to shape it, and that's because I alter or fit everything afterwards. I just see my pattern as a base to continue to correct it afterwards in the fabric. So that's my excuse for not doing it. Your excuse could be that it's quicker and it works okay anyway, but maybe we should not be so public about it. But I like to move on, so there you go. So we start with this fabric, and as said many times before, we start out to find the length of the jacket. And as you see, I have to have a lot of extra fabric at the top, because it's going to, not this time, turn all around to the back, but you have to have some extra for going up to the shoulder. Sorry, I had the flu. But I just wanted to go here to do this for you, so you have to excuse my coffee, my cough. So I have to go up here to have enough fabric for the shoulder area up here, and to continue, because I like to have a slightly slanted shoulder seam backwards, so I have to have a lot of fabric extra. And I also have to have extra fabric over here, because as you can see, if I want a wide lapel, when I turn this up, it will actually go outwards here. So I have to have enough fabric over here to have enough for the lapel afterwards when it turns down. But we start with the length. So I start up here and always have enough for the hem downwards. So I just make a cut and rip it apart. And then I have to have enough to start out here if I want a wide lapel, and then continue around the shoulder all the way to the back and a little bit extra. Usually, and then I just cut and rip it. Usually it's often done in separate pieces, so you don't have to stand with so much fabric. But sorry. But what I do like is, I just have to check this again. I did it the wrong way, so I had enough this way and I have enough this way, so I just have to make another cut. I rather like to do the whole half body in one, because it gives me more freedom to see the fluid, not the floating, the shape of the whole jacket at once. Otherwise, usually you do just the front part, then the side part, and the back part. And that's fine if you're a beginner, but I like to make you advance faster, so that's why we do it this way. And that's how we've done it before, except the first episode when we just made the front and the back. So I have this fabric here. I have to put this color up because otherwise I won't be able to drape around its natural shoulder. So I put the color up, and as you can see, I've only done one side of this filled color. It's still rough in this area over here, so don't pay so much attention to that one. I think I fold it away a little bit like that. So I have my length and I have my width, and of course we have to start a little bit further out here, and I would like to see my my front edge, so I just fold it so I have a straight line in the back here, and have enough for the lapel, and then I just place it as far over center front as I want my jacket to overlap. So if you just want an ordinary jacket like this one, maybe it's a little bit hard to see, but it's just one butt, it's not double-breasted, and then you just maybe have to use 1/2 centimeters, and that's a little bit more than 1/2 inch probably, or 2/3 extra from center front. But of course, if we would like a double-breasted jacket, you can just continue out here, and then you will get the label out here. So we do a single-breasted jacket because we don't have any more canvas over here. So I just put it a little bit further out, and I mark where the label starts. Put a pin up here just to keep it in place, and then sorry, and then continue downwards. Usually I put 2 pins here, so it's easier to keep it fixed. And this is probably a little bit wider than the ordinary jacket, but you can always alter that later on. And again, this is maybe not super exact, but it was a little bit hard to do it without looking at it, but I hope you get the point. So your center front will be about here, and then you have some extra fabric. And why do you have that? Well, that is to have something for the button or the buttonhole to something to support the button and the buttonhole otherwise, and it also to close the jacket so it's not drafty over here, so you get a continuation of the jacket. Of course, if you would like a zipper, you should just end at the center front and they would meet there. And then you can have an underlay to stop the wind blowing inside you. After you place this one, then you continue around, and here you actually place it after the hem down here. Now I know it doesn't look quite straight um, from the window you are looking through, but I will look from the side and see that would be straight. Here I use sorry, here I use the shoulder width to give the extra movement ease that I would like to have in the jacket. As as different, how do you say that? The ladies' jackets often nowadays you do very tight. Depends where you live and what fashion you like to follow, of course. But it's traditionally Western to make them very tight in the waist nowadays. But you usually don't do that tight for a men's jacket because you would like more of a V, V shape. You want broad shoulders and you would like to have narrow hips. And of course, as you can see under here, that's not how we look. You can see there actually is a waist all the way up here. I have that too up here. And then we have prominent hips too, maybe not that prominent as women, but anyway. And the shoulders aren't that wide as we would like them to be. So what we do is we pad it up here. We'll make it very loose over here. We don't do that much waistline, and then we get the illusion that we come from a wide area, slightly tapered in the waist, and then just continue and have it more narrow at the hips. So that's the difference. Of course, you would like a bit waist, but maybe not at your natural waist, which is quite high, maybe a little bit lower, and then flat hip. So to get enough room in it, I use my shoulder width, and then I just continue to the center back. And then I put a pin, and then I have to look from the side that the front and back is even, and it's not, so I have to just pull the back up. And then I can adjust that somewhat later on. So now I have enough width at the shoulder, hopefully. I have enough width on the armhole, and then I have a straight hem. What you would like to do now is that, or what I usually do, is that I cut down here in the side to the armhole to actually be able to see a little bit what it would look like. Maybe nip it a little bit in the side and then start on the lapel in the front. But you have to choose there for your own. You do maybe like I do, or choose otherwise. Just find your own rhythm. But the important thing is to understand you just don't do it ready at one part immediately. You do a little bit all around to find a good look, and then you just adjust it on the way. So I just cut down here in the side. Down to my armhole. And then I can be able to see more how it would lay over the shoulder. And I would like to nip sorry, something away here in the side. And what we don't do here, of course you could do, but usually you don't do, is to remove everything in the side seam. It looks very much, it gets a much better flow if you make a side panel. So you remove some area in um, the front part of your armhole. We don't want to go all in the we don't want a seam all the way up to the shoulder. We want to start on in the front part of the armhole. So if you have a quarter of the body, then you just move a little bit forward from that. Not very good mathematically, but I hope you understand. So I just pin some area away here and continue down to the hip down here. And not too many pins because you usually would like to alter it later on. So I got an area here down here, and then you can see it starts to be a little bit shapy over here, and be careful not to pull it too much. And then we continue and make a back seam. And if we turn this all the way around, I know there's a lot of information at the same time now, but you followed me for 12 episodes, so I think you can follow my trail of thought. Otherwise, you just have to ask questions, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. But what you can see in the back is that you have a center back here, and what you would like to do is to make this part here narrower with a nice seam that continues out here. So if I just nip it here, and this is very much about taste and fashion where this should be placed, but I give it a go here. So I just slightly tilt it. I'll just move this a little bit. I just slightly tilt it outwards, and it can be a little bit difficult when it's the fabric usually want to continue upwards in the thread, but you just try to pull it slightly outwards. Something like this, and you you want the look of it to go inwards and straight down. But if you do it totally straight down here, then your hip will look wider. So you have to go from the armhole in to something that looks like a narrow waist, and then slightly outwards to follow the side over here. So if I remove the fabric from my front part over here, you can see it goes in a little bit out, in here and out again, and this one follow it a little bit, but not as much. This seam here could or could not include a vent over here. That would be I would call it the 70s look, but maybe it's the 90s, 2000 look now. But it's very sporty. Then you have two vents here because you have a lot of movement in it. And otherwise you have a vent in the center back seam. So now we got a little bit shape over here. We had some shape over here, and what you can see in the back is that this will taper out to almost nothing here, but over here it goes up and removes quite a bit because we want it to be snug here in the front where the sleeve comes down, and a lot of movement in the back. So now we started out with this area. And then I said I would do the color, but I just want to do one dot more, and that's the front dot. And it's not very practical for a lot of people because most men have a little bit of stomach, if you can call it that, or they stand a little bit like this. So to remove fabric up here is not good for the shape unless you have a very prominent chest area and you go and you have a strong stomach. But we like the look of it, so we take one dot over here too that ends up in nothing about the armhole at armhole level. Then of course we have a breast a chest pocket, breast pocket up here, and then we continue this one down to where the pocket area should be. And of course in old school jackets and tailcoat and everything like that, it just continue out. But there's a little bit cleverness here. It is that it continues down here, and then we just would like to have this area in one. So make a shape here, take away a little bit more over here, and we say maybe we will have the pocket over here, so stop it here, and then the trick is, and of course you don't do this in the fabric unless you really know where your pocket should be, that you cut up in the side, continue up to the pocket area, and maybe it should be here somewhere. Just move the pin up a little bit, and then you continue. I think this is going to be a little bit too low, so I want my pockets a little bit higher, so I just move it a little bit up, and then I just cut this way into the pocket in a straight level. Continue to the dart, a little bit tiny longer over there, and then as you can see I can just ease out the fabric, so you get a really nice shape down here. You can ease out the fabric because you have the cut. So actually when we take it off the dress stand, this shape will go down here and just have a slightly angle inwards and continue down here, because you remove to this area and then you don't remove anything more. So that's how you do the dart into the pocket area. And this pocket continues about 1.5 centimeters behind, or continues after the dart, because you have some sewing allowance here in the dart and you want to be clear of that to make your pocket. So a little bit continuation, and if you watch at a lot of jackets, then you can see that this is how it's done. If you have a prominent stomach here and your jacket goes outwards, you can actually pull it in by taking this up a little bit, so you get a dart here, and then you can see it tapers in here. But of course you don't want to do that if you want your plaits to continue here. If you have stripes, it's not that difficult, but if you have plaits, it doesn't look that fancy if you have this stuff. But a lot of jackets has that. So depends what you would like to do. And of course you have a pocket flap here, and the pocket will continue outwards into the side seam over here. So I just continue down here. Sorry. And now I thought we would do the lapel. This video maybe is going to be a little bit long, but I like to see like to do the whole body before we continue in one take. So maybe if you look at it many times, you can just fast forward. Up here we have the area where the lapel will start, and that of course could be wherever you would like it to be. I would like it to be rather high on this one, because that's what I did in the canvas underneath. So what I do is I move over here, and then I make a cut where it's supposed to be. And if I just draw center front here quite carelessly, hopefully straight, and hopefully you can see it, that make it a little bit clearer. And then of course I have my center front further out here, and I don't cut to center front, I cut to where my front edge is supposed to be. And then I have to go over here again, and then I can just take out the top part of it. I just have to continue my cut inwards. To the whole length, and then I just can take out my lapel. Up here, and I could shape in my front edge to the shape that I would like it to have. So I'll just move it inwards. Maybe it's a little bit much fabric here. I think I just remove a bit of it. So it gets much easier to adjust. So now I have my center front here, and I have my label cut free up here. And now I can see what I intended over here, and as you probably realize now is that this one comes on top of the fabric. So actually your front area will go in, be pad stitched to the canvas, and be your undercolor. So that's a lot of people have a little bit difficult to understand that, but the front area goes in here, and then you have another fabric over here that covers the top area, and that's the facing, of course. So I can just continue this shape up to the neck area, and of course I would like to cut out some fabric here at the top. I would like my collar to start at center front here, so I just cut down and out, and then I also cut a square out that's a little bit higher of the neckline, and then I can smooth it up here to the shoulder neck intersection, which is all the way up here, and I'm so happy I have enough fabric. You can see I just have a little piece extra, so it was important that I had it up here to start with. And then I can smooth it in and cut so it fits the neckline I would like it to have. Over here, you almost always get a little bit of extra fabric, but that's okay because we remove that with our pad stitching afterwards. And that was the same thing that we did in the canvas. We formed it in here, or shaped it in, to get a good shape of the chest area and get it tight in between the chest, if you can say that, or your muscles up here, and get the lapel to spring out. So tighten up here, connect a little bit. Of course, it will not be collected at one spot. It usually will be two places. Sometimes people do it from the neck area instead. You can make a little dot here. You can see that on all jackets. And that will so, of course, be covered with the lapel. But be sure not to continue it too far or move it too far out here, because that would not be cool at all. So I think I do it the traditional way, to just remember to pad stitch it away over here, and then I shape this around. I can just pin it just in the canvas, not in the dress stand, and then turn it around and turn my neck down and place it with a pin just on the top here, so I still can remove it afterwards. Got two pins here, and then I can it just went through. And be sure to have the fabric put all the way in, and then you can just cut your collar. Remember to have some sewing allowance. Down to the area where you would like it to be, and of course this will turn inwards afterwards. Now this is a very tiny little collar. You can see this collar goes a little bit further, but again I like them short and high and large, because also because I like it. I think it looks nice for a short person as me, but at the same time it's difficult to make, so I like to make a standpoint there to do this. Usually what you see is very low collars and not that wide, because that's easier to make. So this was the start shape of the collar. I'll just pin it inwards here too. To show the shape of it there. And then we have the front here. We have the sorry, we have the shoulder area, and now we have to start a little bit with the arm hole. And that can be a little bit difficult, but now we have the canvas, so we can start that on. What we would like is not to have it too short over here. That's the important thing. And we want to continue to include this dart over here, and we'll like to go enough to continue enough as deep as possible here without not having fabric enough. A little bit difficult to say that, but have enough fabric to cut away when you're doing a pattern. That's an important thing. And you tighter your jacket you do, you more you have to scope your armhole inwards. The looser jacket you have, you don't have to do that as much, because then you just can drape in the front. So remember that, you tighter you make the jacket, you more scooped out armhole. So I try to draw an armhole here. Downwards. And then I just remove some fabric, and remember to have sewing allowance still within your pattern. So we can start to see some shaping over here, and the width here can always be adjusted with this seam we have here in the front, and of course this will disappear over here. So that's the front. Maybe we would like some rounding in the front, and of course we can just shape that too. Can be a little bit difficult with all the fabric and a little bit pointy, but the important thing is to make a good shape to start out with. This is maybe a little bit too over the top, so I just make it a little less rounded, so it'll have a more narrow shape. Just move it up a little bit, and then continue the shape to the line you would like it to have. And remember, the tighter the jacket you make, then you move and sit. You can see here, this one can actually close, but I put a lot of, I have a leather shirt in and t-shirts and a lot of things, and then when you move, it continues outwards. So if you remove a lot of fabric, then it suddenly will be very open in the front. So maybe not remove maybe you shouldn't remove so much to start out with. And take a bit of extra fabric over here just to make a pocket flap. It could look something like this over here, and that of course depends on which style you would like it to have. And the pockets usually is about 16 centimeters on men's jackets. So there's a pocket flap, and then of course you have to decide the depth of your jacket. You can see it from the side, it's over here. Maybe this should be a little further in the front, and maybe it should be a little bit lower, but then rounded over here. But that's your design, right? You can choose whatever you would like it to be. What's important here in the side is that it doesn't twist. You can see it does that a little bit here now. So I have to lower the back a little bit so it doesn't twist upwards too much. So if I lower the back, you can see I can remove the twists up here. So always have enough fabric in the back. So I pin it in place here. And then in the back, I can plan where my center back will be and have some extra fabric, but I have to remove some here. So I just cut. And then we can see over here that it's quite twisted over here. So I just remove this back so I get a straight line at center back. And then I will get a little bit more out here to the shoulders. So I just can be able to shape it a little bit better. Sorry. And then I have more fabric out here, so I can make this dot a little bit more precise. So I remove my pins. And shape in the back. And remember here that why we had to move this was that actually the hip took so much fabric, so we have to continue in to remove from the chest area. So I pin in a nice soft line. Up to the shoulder, you can see it, it's over here, and up to the sleeve area. And here now it's rather a lot of fabric, so I cut some of it away, saving the sewing allowance. And then it's easier to manipulate the fabric into the shape you would like it to have. And remember, don't do it too tight in the waist. That's always the problem when you do it in real size afterward, that it's almost always too tight. So a lot of room worked into it. Then we can start thinking about the back shoulder area. What's important to remember here sorry, is that you transport the fabric in to make a round shoulder. What we don't use is a back dart. We ease the fabric in the back. So move a little bit fabric in over here. Put a pin just to make sure to have enough fabric, and then you can plan your armhole and make sure that it fits with your front. So I look at the front and I just continue in the back. Be sure to have enough. You have to have enough fabric to stretch your back, so make it very wide in the back and down through the seam and continue to the other area, and then you just cut it with sewing allowance. So, and then you have the shape of the back up here. And then we have to do the neck area, and again we mark where the neck is, and then we make a little cut up so we can continue into the neck area. So I just mark up here in the neck area, cut in a square, and then I can ease the fabric in and connect it up to the shoulder neck intersection. Maybe you can see it up there. So these two has to be connected up here, and it's supposed to be quite tight. And then I can just make my cuts down to the neckline to make it smooth up to the shoulder. And when you made those cuts, you can usually remove a little bit more fabric up here. This seam supposed to continue out to, I have to move down this shoulder pin. This seam is supposed to continue down to the armhole. So you just have to decide here if you want it to go a little bit backwards or you want to continue it to the center of the sleeve here. I always like to continue it backwards of many reasons. One reason is I think it looks nice. The shoulder looks wider when the seam goes down here, but for sewing it's quite nice to have a diagonal cut in the fabric because it's easier to manipulate in, so you can get a nice round back shoulder. So I just continue it backwards and pin it in place, remove my dart pin, my no dart pin, just gather the ease in, pin in place, and of course I have my padding underneath, and then I can just remove some of the fabric. And usually it goes flat over here and then it rounds up ever so slightly up here because you have your padding here and then you have your neck intersection. So a little bit rounded up here. And when I cut, I just readjust some of my fabric. If I can't use all the fabric in here for my ease, I'll just put it outwards again, and then I can just adjust my armhole once more over here and make a continuation around here. It's important that you get a round, nice shape of it. And if you should lack any fabric, you can just add on. You just pin it on in the same thread direction. So what we have now is, let's put this one down again. So what we have now is a front jacket with some gathering in here, could also be a dart from the neckline. We have shaped the lapel. We will find the color scheme here very easily. Just mark it up here, and we have the front line in thread direction. We have rounded it in the shape we'd like it to be. We made a hem over here. We have a front dart to the level approximately under the sleeve at the bottom of the armhole, or arm side as it's called. We continue to the level where we want the pocket. Ease it out to the side. Check that the side panel lays flat. Remove a lot here. Remove very little in the back so you have movement. You continue your hem. A little bit bulky here, but anyway. Through the side to the back, and you have a nice back here with a straight line, and you have some ease in here, and you have marked the neckline. So the last thing we have to do is to fix this, and what we would like to do is to remove something here, of course, to make a nice behind over here, but that's not what we do in men's tailoring, because we have this idea of these full pieces. So what we do is that we cut in here and then just ease it away as much as we can. You can see it opens over here. So actually the center back over here is in thread direction, but here it tilts out to the neck. So it starts up here. Should remove a little bit more. It goes in to the waist, continues a bit further down, maybe here, and then goes out again to something that would be a vent back here. This is very high vent, but probably it would go downwards, something like that. This area is stretched up here to get the shaping of the back as we would like it to be. So this is the base of the jacket so far. I know a lot of you would like to see the pattern pieces when I take it down, but it's far too complicated. Of course I could mark it and take it all from each other, but I do that in another episode. So I will save this one, and then we start on a fresh another one and take some moment for that. So this was the base of how to make a jacket in the shape you would like it to be. That's why this is interesting, is that you can shape whatever you would like it to be do remember not to make it too tight. It will always be irritating. But otherwise, I would say have fun with it and try it out and do as many as you can and make them up too. So I was thrilled to show you this, and I hope you enjoyed it. It will be long, but there you go when you have a lot on your mind you want to tell to your friends. I hope you will continue into next episode, episode 14. That was all for me. Have a pleasant day. Bye.